As usual, all kinds of things are happening in the world. And of course, we're going to talk about these various things that are happening in the world, including, guess what? Yes, the US president is having another batch of classified documents found in another secret location. So I don't know about these secret locations, second locations, whatever these locations may be or not be, but it does look like they have found some more classified documents, and it looks like his aides are the ones that found those and all in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this regard. Isn't this the second time around that we've had a president that has had some documents that folks have been wondering about and have been found in other locations? I know that there were some documents found in Trump's area of Margot, and definitely there have been documents now apparently found in the White House from Biden's time as the vice president. So it'll be interesting to see what my esteemed panel have to say about that and other things that are in the news as well. So there's all kinds of things going on, and that is one of the things that I am seeing that a lot of folks are paying attention to and all in that space. So that is definitely going on in the world, and definitely there is also a New York City strike that apparently has ended after some time and all in that way. So the New York City nurses, and we do know a lot of people have a lot of respect for those that are frontline workers, but a nurses strike at two private New York City hospital systems has come to an end after 7,000 nurses spent 3 days on the picket line. The New York State Nurses Association union reached tentative deals with Mount Sinai Health Systems and Montefiore Health Systems, which operates three hospitals in the Bronx that had been struck. The nurses had been arguing that immense staffing shortages had caused widespread burnout, hindering their ability to properly care for their patients. The union said the deal will provide enforceable, safe staffing ratios for all inpatient units at Mount Sinai and Mount Fiore so that there will always be enough nurses at the bedside to provide safe patient care, not just on paper. And at Montefiore, the hospital agreed to financial penalties for failing to comply with agreed upon staffing levels in all units. And I do know that in this day of the pandemic and everything, a lot of folks have been, wondering and wanted to make sure that nursing care was doing well and all in that way. And I'd be curious to see what folks have to say about that, even from our global community as well. Because I remember sometime back when mom was in the hospital, she actually had to chastise the nursing care folks because they were not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing and all in that line. And my mom is not one to hold her tongue if she feels that folks are not actually doing the right kind of work and all in that space. So that is definitely one of the things that we're seeing. And speaking of other things that we're seeing and that have impacted the world and everything, Trump is apparently preparing to open his next phase of 2024 campaigning just down the road from me because I'm over here in Durham, North Carolina, and he's planning to do that in South Carolina. So he is definitely looking at doing that, heading down to South Carolina and maybe doing some more campaigning down there. We know that South Carolina, like North Carolina, can be a major swing state in any election. And definitely, I'm sure folks will be watching both of these states in the Carolinas very heavily during this whole election cycle, and definitely all in that way. And by the way, I know that I had a guest on yesterday that was from California. They were all about happiness and why we can be happy, but they were also saying that they were glad that they were getting rain down there in California, but it looks like those weeks of rain are not going to end the historic drought. So it does look like that even though we're getting that great rain, it might not be ending that historic drought and all in that space. And by the way, there was a legendary musician, one that I've had the pleasure of listening to in the past, and I know many other people have as well, a British guitar legend, that being Jeff Beck, who passed away at the age of 78. So I do know some folks that are Jeff Beck fans will definitely be mourning the loss of that particular individual as well. And by the way, I forgot what the Mega Million is up to, and that's a whole nother story. But it does seem like it is at some ridiculous amount. I think it's like 1.35 billion or something like that. So that drawing, I think, is taking place on Friday, and I'm sure a lot of folks will be scrambling to get those $2 tickets and see if they can be the one that'll be winning that money. And if they win the money, hopefully they'll be learning about financial literacy and some of the things that we talk about on this particular network so they can actually keep the money should they win that money and all of that. Because we know there are too many tales of entertainers, both in the sports sense, as well as musicians and others that have gotten a windfall of cash and did not unfortunately know how to handle the cash and therefore lost the cash very quickly as well. So that's some of the things that were on my mind. I was going to ask Shaquille about something that I heard yesterday, and I wanted to hear what Lee's got to say about that, and we'll get to some other world issues as well. And I'm sure Nick may have some thoughts about what I'm going to bring up also. But the last things I'm going to bring up in terms of things in the news are that protests against Peruvian President Dina Boluarte, governments that have left 48 people dead since they began a month ago, spread through the south of the Andean country on Wednesday, with new clashes reported in the tourist city of Cusco. So health officials in Cusco said 37 civilians and 6 police officers were injured after protesters tried to take over the city's airport, where many foreign tourists arrived to see sights, including the nearby Incan citadel of Machu Picchu. And I do know a little bit about that because that is actually used in one of the testing projects that I am involved with. They oftentimes talk about Machu Picchu and its legacy and all in that way. The protests and road blockades against Boluarte and in support of ousted President Pedro Castillo were also seen in 41 provinces, mainly in Peru South. The unrest began in early December following the destitution and arrest of Castillo, Peru's first president from rural roots, following his widely condemned attempt to dissolve Congress and head off his own impeachment. The protests, mainly in neglected rural areas of the country still loyal to Castillo, are seeking immediate elections, Boluarte's resignation, Castillo's release, and justice for the protesters killed in clashes with the police. Some of the worst protest violence came on Monday when 17 people were killed in clashes with police in the city Jolaca near Lake Titicaca, and protesters later attacked and burned a police officer to death. And definitely we're going to see what's going on in that space, and definitely have something to say about some of the other stories that I'm seeing, including one that is involving the Proud Boys, because apparently their Proud Boys sedition trail is to open 2 years after the January 6th riot. So that's about to be in the news. And DeSantis is being tested on immigration as he weighs his 2024 candidacy. Of course, he is down there in Florida. And of course, there's a large amount of immigrants and folks that migrate down to that Florida area. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say about immigration and how he is being tested and all in that way. But the question I was going to bring up to Shaquille, and I'm going to bring him up first, is I had mentioned it yesterday briefly in the news, and he said he had some thoughts around it and everything. This notion of the IRS, and apparently the House has passed a bill to kind of go after the IRS, slash some of that IRS funding. Who knows? Maybe they'll even get rid of the IRS at some point or another, because I know that when Dan's been here, he's railed against the FBI, the CIA, and others, and I've not exactly not been on his bandwagon in that case as well. But I was just wondering your thoughts about this notion of maybe the IRS and some of these federal agencies have expanded too much and all in that space, and it might not be a bad idea to cut some of their funding. And I'll bring in Nick Palveda as well as Lee Newton Rhodes, who we've got with us as well. Nick, of course, being one of the founders of the network, Lee being down there in the New York area where that nurses' riot was going on and everything. And of course, we've also got Sasha Starr, who will probably have some news to share with us about what's going on in Ukraine and that horrible war that Russia has launched against them. But Shaquille, what's your thoughts? Do we need to get rid of some money from the IRS? We just need to get rid of the IRS altogether.
Now, as you are aware, I am going to be traveling to the United States shortly, and that means I have to renew my ESTA, my visa waiver program, thing, so I can enter the United States. So, in light of that, may I say the American government and all of its agencies are perfect in every way. They need more funding for everything that they want to do, and I can't imagine why anybody would ever dream of taking away their funding. Once I'm in the United States, I might have some other news. No, look, I will say this. I think that the really significant issue with IRS funding and with other federal government funding in the United States is that there is a feeling amongst a lot of people in the United States and people that I speak to who are small business owners, not big, large business owners, not people that are multimillionaires, just mum and dad running a shop. There's a big feeling that they're being targeted. or that they're going to be targeted, and that's an issue. I've been talking to a lot of people here in Australia, and a lot of my friends, most of my friends own businesses, and I actually don't know anybody. I don't know a single small business owner in Australia who does not currently have a tax problem, does not currently have a problem with the Australian Taxation Office. Now, look, I understand our countries have had to spend a bit of extra money, significant amounts of extra money, because of COVID. Now, we can argue about whether or not they had to spend as much as they did. We can argue about whether or not the Build Back Better plan or the Infrastructure Act was reasonable or whether it was too much. We can argue about that. And I certainly have not been shy to give you my thoughts and feelings on those plans. But at the end of the day, trying to raise that revenue by having people go out there and harass and just go after and annihilate everyday business people, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that hurts people. And I think that this is why you're having in America, and that's in Australia to a lesser degree, this is why there is such a distrust of government and this feeling of, the government's against me. I think that people in government need to realize that, government is not there to rule over you, especially in the United States. Government's supposed to be a tool. And it's supposed to be a tool to help all of us, not me because I'm an American, but everybody who lives in the country, access things, healthcare, education, infrastructure. You want good roads, all of that. That's all very important stuff, and government needs to do that. But when government goes after people and it ends up being a hostile kind of war, where it's sort of like us against them kind of thing, that's not good. That's not what you want. That's what the black community has felt with the police department. It's not that the police department's there to help them, which is what conservatives generally say about the police department. The feeling on the ground with a lot of black people is that the police department are here just to be at war with us, right? So, you need to change that mentality. And I think that saying that you're going to give this massive amount of money to the IRS,
not good,
right? It's not. And Nick, are they going to go after me? Probably not, because I spend $1 million a year on tax lawyers, right? Are they going to? And if they do go after me and they win, no problems. It's my tax accountants and tax lawyers that'll have to deal with it. I have to deal with it. I'm not going to jail, right? But if you go after a big corporation, you go after Microsoft or Google or whoever, right? They might pay a fine if you catch them out, but they can withstand that. But, if Sasha and I say, hey, look, we're going to set up a chess school in Toronto, right? And Sasha puts 50 grand in and I put 50 grand in. Then we say, you know what, let's expand. Let's do it in New York. And we get Lee to put 100 grand in and we match him and we set up a little chess school in New York. Are we the sorts of people that the tax office, forget about me, let's just say Sasha and Lee. Are they the sorts of people that you really are trying to go after?
Yes.
Like really?
And I'll tell you why. The reason they'll go after you.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Let's be serious.
Yeah.
Nick, just follow the money.
I think this is what's causing there to be such dysfunction and such distrust. We've had a couple of guests that have come on in the last couple of days. They've brought up good points. Medea, she talks about sweatshops overseas. And I said, you're right, we shouldn't allow that, especially when we've got unions advocating for better rights here. What we need to be doing is maybe showing each other a little bit more compassion, a little bit more love. I think that women especially tend to do that better than us men do. I still stand by my comments that I said last night, that peace is won with violence. Peace is won by the threat of violence and bloodshed. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. But we don't need and we should not accept government that is there to be our enemy. And that's what it looks like when you've got the IRS that are going out there to harass the everyday public. That's exactly the reason. That's why I'm always so incredulous about the United States. That's the reason that you guys wanted to leave the UK, because you felt that there was swarms of people out there to harass the people of America. So Americans said, we've had enough of this shit, right? We've had enough of taxation without representation. We've had enough of you harassing us like this. We want our independence. And now instead of bowing to the royal family, you got 350 million Americans that want to curtsy to Washington. I have absolutely no idea what that is.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I just chimed in today. It's I got hit with a really serious attack on my technology, so I'm pretty much lost all my data for the past 12 years. So I'm having to take a few days off to recover everything. So I apologize. I'm not.
You didn't actually answer my question yesterday, by the way. Do you believe that this technology hack, Steve, is just something that happened, or is it perhaps a Republican conspiracy? Have you got some stuff, some Democratic secrets on your hard drives that we should know about?
Yeah, yes, confidential information.
So tomorrow, Friday might be. We are having. First of all, I want to welcome everybody to the show. Just want to remind everyone that Monday is MLK Day, and we're going to do a theme of MLK coming into the weekend. I may be out on Friday, so we'll run the MLK special on Monday, which is also the MLK Day of Service, and I'll work with Mark Lee to try to bring in a guest. But with that being said, I just wanted to come in and say hi to everybody. The main thing is the tax documents, finding in Biden's office. That's the main thing. Condoleezza Rice has written a really good piece. I would really recommend for Sasha and all of us to read on Ukraine.
I sent it posted.
Yeah,
Steve, where was it posted?
Today's Washington Post. If you just go to Washington Post.
Steve, sorry. I just want to clarify. You said tax documents. I haven't read that, but I did read that the White House on classified.
I'm sorry.
So what's going on here? Does this not look like partisanship here? The White House is going to say absolutely nothing about these documents, but yet they're going after Donald Trump with perceived, with their allegation that he had classified documents at Mar-a-Lago.
It's the failure of the National Archives in handling classified material. Okay. Now, I know as attorney, I didn't handle classified, but I handle corporate documents that are sensitive. We don't let them out of our site. If you're an attorney and you want to go discover and review our documents, you come to our office, you sit there, you review the documents, they don't go out of our site, and then you get out of our bloody office. But you don't take the documents with you and you don't make copies.
Well, the difference, Nick, is that you were an officer of the court. You were or are somebody who practices the law. You're not somebody who makes the law and believes that they're therefore above.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Who the heck do they think they are? I'm the president of the United States, so I'm going to be able to take the classified documents and scatter them around the world. No, you don't. If they're classified,
but isn't that my point, Nick? Isn't that my point when I criticize Democrats and Republicans and politicians in my own country for exactly the same thing? You are a politician. You are not above the law.
Exactly.
You should be held to at least the same standard as the rest of us, probably a higher standard.
Exactly. In other words, the National Archives, the attorneys for the National Archives, if they have any there, would, in other words, if I was working for the National Archives as an attorney and you're the president of the United States, you want to see the documents? Yeah, you come to my office, you can sit and look at the documents, especially if they're really classified, sensitive documents, and then you can leave. Oh, I want to take them to my house. No, you don't. Okay? I mean, Nick, the real problem is that some of the people that work for our government have no chutzpah at all. And they go, oh, Nick, but he's the president, so I'm just going to turn around and give him the documents.
I'd rephrase it from some of the people to almost everybody.
Nick, in your case, though, all the documents don't get into the archives until they're done working with them. They're in the workplace while they're being created. Am I correct?
Well, the thing is, the real question is the sensitivity and who has care, custody, and control of those documents. Lee, if they were my documents and they're my care, custody, and control, and you're the president of the world, okay, you don't get the documents to take home and make copies. You can come to my.
No, I agree with you. But they don't get to the archives necessarily immediately upon creation.
I'm not really sure how they got there, and this is what I'm saying. But that we have some really poor, what they call control. In other words, organizational control of our documents.
100%.
Those are written documents. Lee, think about the sensitivity. Most documents are stored electronically. Our national security system has got to be really poor.
Okay, we can thank Hillary about that, storing them electronically.
What really bothers me isn't this. This is like a tip of an iceberg. We could have a lot of sensitive documents that are electronically stored that are in other people's hands. Putin could have the whole game plan of the United States dealing with the Ukraine crisis in his little thumb drive because some idiot at the National Archives puts it on an electronic file that somebody can easily transport. I'm just telling you from our standpoint, it is when we handle sensitive information in our firm all the time. we just don't let it out of our sight like that. I mean, and then when I see the National Archives having written classified documents scattered all over God's creation, you know, it tells me that the operational control of the National Archives is really extremely poor.
Well, we know that the operational controls of a lot of things are out of control, but I do have a
Nick, in all fairness, though, that not only that what you're saying is true, but those people who have the documents are not abiding by whatever rules and regulations are in place for caretaking.
Yeah,
No, they're
right.
not abiding by a lot of rules.
We're not vetting our employees properly, maybe.
Well,
Yeah,
that's actually one of the.
and Lee, since you're a CPA, you understand, you know, control. I mean, you know, when it comes to
No, I understand it.
type of stuff, and I'm just going like, wow, we've really got. I think what we saw isn't Trump and Biden. We saw a tip of a potential major security breach in the United States dealing with classified information in general. And we don't know what systems and controls they actually have over it right now, because there is no discussion on this whatsoever. They're too busy investigating Trump, and they're too busy looking at Hunter Biden to actually look at themselves and see the systems and operations and operational control that they have over their own sensitive information. So this is a really poor grade from our National Security Administration. And also, I'd like to see what Chris
hold on a second, Nick, hold on a second, because I was going to get back to one of the other stories that I brought up earlier. I actually got a couple things I'm going to bring up, but one of the things that we've seen is, because I think we saw it to some degree in Canada with the truckers, we've definitely now seen it with the nurses and everything, but people are complaining that, you know, there's been a shortage of work because people have left their work because of the burnout, because of what happened with the pandemic and everything else. So then
Or they were fired.
and then they go and do a strike, and then they get some demands. So my question is are we going to see more of this taking place, not just where you are, Lee, in New York, because that's what happened. They were complaining about the staffing shortage that caused that widespread burnout, and all in that space we saw to some degree. I think the truckers were complaining, and that's what happened in Canada and everything. So are we going to just see more strikes taking place around the country as a lot of companies are shrinking and a lot of people are being thrust with a lot more job responsibilities than they've had before?
I don't know. It's pretty hard to predict, Mark. But see, one problem that we have also in our educational system, remember, medical in the United States is 20% of our GDP, or approximately. Mm-hmm. That's huge. You have to imagine you earn $1.20 goes into our medical situation. In other words, you pay for medical information. One way to bring the cost down, which Shaquille would probably agree with me on this thing, is to increase the supply of adequate people that are in the medical profession. However, it's not being done in the United States. And I know because my grandkids are not taking biology, chemistry. They're not taking things that are, you know, anatomy, and they could offer this at the elementary school.
Nick, and those that are, we fire them when they don't get the shot.
It doesn't make a difference. Yeah, Lee.
Yeah, and those that do, and they are in the workplace, we fire them when they don't want the shot that they think is harmful or useless.
Yeah, but the thing is, what we need to do is have a support at the elementary education level on healthcare. Okay, my grandkids are not taking any healthcare courses, which they should be taking in middle school and elementary school. Zero, none are offered.
There's no core requirements.
It should be core requirements. Absolutely.
It should be. All these STEM courses should be required.
20% of our GDP, so 20% of the classes you take should be biology, anatomy, basic medical procedures, emergency medical procedures. All this could be offered at the elementary school level. Sasha knows that because chess players got in and did that. Why isn't it being offered? It's because our educational system, controlled by this teachers union, who basically provides watered down education that they learned. In other words, they're not the best and the brightest. And that's part of the reason to solve the issue. Here's how the chess players did. They brought in outside vendors, and Sasha knows this. Outside good chess players taught chess at the elementary level. You need to bring in outside vendors to teach biology, anatomy, basic emergency procedures, et cetera, and we're doing none of it. Yes, Sasha.
One more important thing I would like to add to what you just said. It's remember a rule of 10,000 hours. So when you are so early immersed into any activity, whether it's chess, music, or biology or anything, the more you immersed into it and you deal with it and you learn about it, first of all, there is a great chance that you will love it and it will become your occupation later on in life. And second of all, you will be so good at practicing this and learning about it. So when you will become a professional, you will be on a certain level.
Yeah, exactly. My mom was,
let me just say something quickly here. The healthcare costs in America, it's not just about whether you're teaching kids this. It's the fact that universities, there's no shortage of kids that are finishing high school who have the grades to go to medical school. There's not a shortage of them. The fact of the matter is that the medical places at universities have been artificially suppressed because of the hundreds of millions of dollars that the AMA has put into making sure that there was going to be a lower amount of doctors. And then what they've done is they've done things like having race quotas or gender quotas, that sort of thing. Now, even if you agree with them trying to have a more diverse student body, how could you possibly say to a medical school, if you don't graduate enough people of color, if you don't graduate enough nurses or enough females, then we're going to take away your licensing ability from all the other students, even if those students do anything wrong? That doesn't make any sense. The fact of the matter is the United States has approximately twice the OECD average in medical costs, and they have approximately half per capita the amount of medical staff.
Right.
So someone like myself goes to the United States. I've had medical care in the United States, and I've got really severe dental issues that I've ended up getting treated in the United States and will continue to get treated in the United States. I have a fantastic time. It's the best medical care that I've received has been in the United States, but I can afford it. The everyday person can't. That just shouldn't be the system. That just shouldn't be the way it is. And to your comments about chess, just to use that analogy for a moment, I've had my uncle, a very, very good chess player, not quite at the level that you guys are at, but I think he was 2,200, 2,300 or something. He did tell you guys when you met him. I've never beaten him. Nobody in the family's beaten him, but I've been beating him recently. And part of the reason why was actually because off air, Sasha and I got together and had a few games of chess. I had a couple of drinks with him. And Sasha said to me, you're a very good player. You're very aggressive, this and that. The flaws in your game is here, here, and here. One of the things that Sasha said, and I hated him for saying it, was, really, Shaquille, you need to work on your opens. You need to learn more opens. And I don't want to learn them because I hate learning opens. It's the most boring part of the game of the opens. But because he said that, I focused on my opens. And as a result, I thought, I'm going to beat my uncle. So I studied all of his games on chess.com. I saw what his favorite opens were, and I just studied those because I wanted to beat him, and I managed to beat him. But that's the thing. Unless you have somebody who's going to tell you where your flaws are, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's what I see as being the problem in the United States, is that you'll tell politicians, look, you're dropping the ball on this. You're dropping the ball on that. Democrats will hear from Republicans, look, what you're doing is not going to be particularly business friendly. It's going to hurt the economy in this way or that way. Republicans will hear from the Democrats. What you're proposing is going to leave a few people behind. There's going to be some people that are going to be struggling, et cetera, et cetera. And what do? Nothing. They pretend like they haven't heard the advice, and they turn it into a thanks, Lee, backstage. They turn it into a, it's us versus them type of mentality. That's the problem. There's no
Shaquille, the us versus them mentality. I've got to actually bring a couple of points to what you're saying.
Guys, I'm gonna hand it off. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. And,
we'll hopefully see you tomorrow, Steve. But once again,
Mark, don't jump in on top of Sasha, because Sasha was going to say something.
Take care, Steve.
I wanted to advise Shaquille, if you really don't want to study openings, play random Fischer chess. There are no openings at all. It starts from some obscure, weird-looking positions, and it goes into its own way. Now, interesting thing is that in the middle game, all positions gravitate to a normal chess position. So I looked at all the top players in the world, like Carlsen and others, are playing Fischer random chess. They start from a weird position, and about 20 moves later, 25 moves later, it still comes into normal chess sooner or later. That's
great.
really interesting.
I think Sasha, what's been great for you is after we played. It's been a while. We haven't a game for it. It's got to be at least a year. But because of the things that you said to me, I did do some of the things that you said and improve my chess game. And what I found now is I'm playing people that are significantly better than me. And what I'm finding is I'll make a move and I'll realize, yeah, that was a blunder. And I'll often say to them, I only made one mistake. And the response I get back every time is, that's all it's going to take is just one mistake. And I've had a few games where they've said, you played perfectly. It was just that one mistake. And they didn't make the mistake, or they made the mistake much later in the game.
Yeah.
But the point is that I'm going to learn from my mistakes on chess or in life. I'm going to learn from my mistakes.
No, I just said the point you're hold on a
That's
second.
very, very interesting. Just 1 minute. My 21 years old grandson, he visited me a few days ago, and he asked me to show him some chess variations, openings, anything, because he practically a novice. He knows rules, but nothing more than that. So I showed him some ideas about opening, how to develop pieces and fight for a center and all that usual stuff or so. Guess what's happened in the last few days? Yesterday I spoke to him. I was amazed. He signed on chess.com. Got the whatever ratings they're getting, 1,500 or whatever. And he's winning practically all games. And I try to figure out how is that happen. Apparently he's playing 1 minute games and wins on time.
Right.
All his games, regardless of position. Tell him that Matthew, you cannot learn anything by playing 1 minute games. It's nothing. It's basically
Well, I beg to
nothing else.
I beg to differ though, actually, because for myself, when I really started falling in love with King's Gambit, I know you and Nick are going to sit there and go, "Oh my god, here he goes again with this King's Gambit bullshit." But when I first wanted to do that, the 1 minute games were great because you get to learn the patterns. You get to play a whole heap of games really quickly, and you get to sort of recognize patterns. When you want to be a little bit more strategic, then you can go for longer games. For me, I'm going to struggle at 15. But my perfect time is 15 minutes and 10 seconds because anything over that, I get a bit bored. Anything under that, I tend to rush it. I do pretty well at 5 minute games as well, but I'm not going to sit there for an hour playing games while Nick sits there and tries to work out the best
Shaquille, hold on a second. And coming back to the world news, because we do have the chess show and everything. But one thing I was going to say about the medication and medical system is a couple of things that I was thinking about as y'all were talking about that aspect of things. Is one is that there is no doubt that some people come from other countries and I think Nick has even alluded to this, they get their training here and then they go and take their skill back, whether it's in medicine or whether it's in engineering, back to their other countries. Because I can tell you that there are quite a few. As a matter of fact, I think one of my upstairs neighbors, he's either in law school or medical school, I can't remember which, but he is definitely from China and he's going to get his degree from Duke and everything, and then he'll go back to China. He's already said that in a couple of conversations that we've had and everything. So we do
does that mean then, Mark, that all the criticism of China is a little unfounded, right? They can't possibly be that oppressive a government if all these really bright students that tend to come from wealthy families come to America and Australia and the UK to get an education, and then they willingly go back. Maybe China's not quite as bad as we think they are, and maybe we should be doing more to compete with the world as opposed to just blaming China. Is that a good?
I was going to get to that. I was also getting ready to get to my other point, which I was going to get to as well, which is coming back to, well, I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, for those that are watching and everything. Durham, North Carolina is where Duke University is. And Duke University has basically created what I would consider, and I don't know what Nick's thoughts around this, are a medical monopoly, because Duke actually, they don't own the VA, but they do own Durham Regional, and they also own Lincoln. And Lincoln, by the way, was the historical African-American hospital. And I want to say that if I remember correctly, they bought that out as well. So they're all under that watch. And, there's like a hierarchy within a monopoly. So I want to say that Lincoln is now the lower of the hospital, because now it's a clinic when it used to be a full hospital way back in the 50s or whatever and everything. So I do sometimes think that a lot of our medical establishments have become the same as our farms. And we had somebody that was a guest not that long ago that was talking about the farming aspect and how there's this massive agro business out there and everything. So, and the family farmer has gone. And I think that the same has happened to some degree with the medical establishments, because a lot of the medical establishment is run by these large corporate medical establishments. And we don't really think that they are doing all that much for the welfare of the common person. That's just my thoughts.
Mark, honestly, I actually try. I really do, because I try to be a pragmatic person and a person who's open to other ideas. Georgia last night, yesterday morning for you guys, was talking about animal rights, and all of a sudden she just had to throw climate change in there. I actually really try really hard to listen to you wokesters and to see if I can make some sense of it. But here we've gone from the issues facing the medical community, which you've somehow turned and twisted by talking about some monopoly over something that was a historically black hospital, over to farming. And basically, so far, it's like the violence.
No, Shaquille, you weren't following my conversation.
In North Carolina, the United States. I mean,
no, you weren't following my conversation. I was making that observation across the board, and what I said, and I actually directed it to Nick and everything, because I think Nick had said something similar, is that a lot of our hospitals have become overly corporatized and everything. So they're like these big, large corporation type of deals that are running things, and that's what is going on.
Nick, that may well be the case, but what does that have to do with skin color? Why did you all of a sudden have to throw some race thing?
I was just bringing up it was a monopoly. And I was just using Lincoln as an example, because Lincoln is one of those that got overrun. I could have used a small farm example. I could have used a small farm hospital, but I was using Durham, because Durham is what I'm talking about. So an example of what?
If you want to draw attention to the over corporatization of hospitals or farming or both or other industries like groceries or whatever, fine. But you had to throw race in there as well. So what should I say?
I was just using that example of what happened, because it went from being a major hospital
Utah, that doesn't matter as much, because they're predominantly run by white people.
I was using an example because it went from being a major hospital in a certain community and is now a clinic and everything. And it was part of the monopolization that took place. I won't say with Lincoln, it was back in the 70s or something like that. But I was bringing up the point of monopolization. I wasn't even going there, because you never even heard me say until now what the nature of Lincoln was.
But see, the thing is, that's a local issue. We have a big systemic issue.
And that's what I was getting.
The United States isn't addressing. And let's start with this. The national debt, because of, and I know Steve is there, goes to meet on Joe Biden, is going to increase $1 trillion a year for the next 10 years. In other words,
we're more than that.
Trillion.
You've been doing $1 trillion a year for the last few years. It'll be more than $1 trillion.
I know that, but this is a minimum. This is a minimum benchmark. Okay, that's problem number one. Would you, Shaquille, invest in a company that's going to be $1 trillion in debt every year for the next 10 years, mounting over $40 trillion in debt? Problem number one. Problem number two, the two systems that you establish, Social Security, will go bankrupt in the next decade, and the other one, Medicare, will go bankrupt this decade. Problem number two. Problem number three, in the interim, we spent billions for Tesla to have their little stations across the country, and billions to allow Intel to bring microchips in, and billions on other programs that don't make sense. We gave $40 billion to international aid, and increasing the debt of each individual American to $247,000.
Sorry. Let me just point. Hang on. Let me just point something out to you.
You're insane.
Let me just point something out to you, because I do actually pay attention.
And you trade.
Hang on just a minute. I pay attention to these shows, and I pay attention to some of the things said by guests, especially you, because I like to beat up on you because you're a trust fund baby, right? I actually had to earn mine. And I happen to recall when I criticized all of this, and you said, being the great Democrat that you are, right, the former Republican, you said, well, we can't have all these Americans driving their big trucks. They need to drive electric vehicles, right? You said it doesn't matter about rising grocery prices. They should just use trains, etc. You, in fact, supported all of this. Now that it's not working, now all of a sudden you say,
it's not
government's
working,
irresponsible.
but the people don't pay for that. The individual pays for that. We don't have the government pay for it. Yeah. Yes.
Nick, I would like to ask you a question. Have you heard about the two-ballot syndrome?
No, what's the two ballot syndrome?
Okay, this is all about, let's see, if you have a patient he was driven to your hospital and he has one wound in his brain and another one in his heart. So even if you could save and somehow fix the brain damage, right? He'll die from the heart anyway. Or vice versa, even if you will be able to repair his heart and fix it, he'll die from the brain anyway. So if United States has so many problems, all these hidden liabilities and the Medicare going out of business and all this stuff, why to worry about fixing one problem if another one is deadly, or you'll fix the second problem, the third one will kill you anyway? Why to worry about it?
Because, Sasha, the problems are fixable. In other words, it's not like this is impossible to
Maybe
fix.
one of those could be. All of them will not be fixable, because if you are talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars of hidden liabilities or unfunded liabilities, you can call it any time. So how is this 1 trillion give or take here and there will help it?
It's all fixable. It's like saying I've got a gun laying down there, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. And that's not going to be fixable. I've got a gun laying there and let's just push the gun aside. Look, all these problems are fixable if you're willing to fix them and willing to fix
some of them.
Is the current crop of politicians willing to fix them?
Yeah, if you're willing to fix them. Let's start with Social Security.
Hold on a second.
Now, people aren't going to like to hear what we need to do to fix Social Security.
One
thing we need to do to fix Social Security, of course, is to lift the cap, because rich people don't pay into Social Security. All poor people don't know that. Because
Nick, how is that going to help when you have people taking the money and using it for other purposes? Wasn't it set up as self-funded?
It's got to go back into the Social Security trust fund, Lee. Okay, number one, lift the cap. Number two, increase the age of retirement. Again, I don't want to do that, but you increase the retirement age. By the way, they're already doing that in the area I work in, pensions. The new required minimum distribution age is age 75. We allow people to take Social Security at age 62. You got to push it back. Okay, just doing two things like that can make the Social Security system solvent. Medicare. Again, with Medicare, it's 2.9%. It's way too low. You're going to have to increase the rate of funds that go to Medicare, and you're going to have to cut the benefits. There's too much stuff, and I know now I'm on Medicare. How they work. The reason, and Mark's there. The reason Duke's so rich is the thing is they basically milk me for every possible health thing that they can bill Medicare on. I mean, and you've got to cut that stuff out. The expenses are insane in what they do, and some of it, it's the end of life care. Just before somebody dies, they rack up 100,000 or 300,000 in Medicare bills. So you're going to have to cut the benefits, maybe do an 80-20 on the Medicare and increase the Medicare tax. Notice none of the things you have to do are popular. The other thing you've got to get rid of this crazy Democrat government spending. And I'm a Democrat. Mark, they gave $40 billion to Africa. Africa doesn't need the 40 billion. We need the 40 billion.
No, we need some more money. That's for sure. But my question to everybody here. Hold on a second. My question
us to feel good. Okay?
My question to everybody, including you, Dan.
$75 billion to Tesla so they can build all these stations. We don't need that. If Tesla wants to build the stations, they can pay for it. We gave almost $100 billion to Intel and all these crazy semiconductors. Any person who has a cause, who can hire lobbyists, goes crying to Congress, oh, please, give me some more money. And we don't have the money to do it. So what we do.
But speaking of crying to Congress, I've got a quick question to ask both of y'all. And it actually comes back to something else we were talking about earlier as well, which is this divided world and divided America. I think Shaquille mentioned it earlier and everything. But it's not just us that's divided. Because I mentioned earlier Peru, and Peru seems very divided because they've got their little thing going on between one side of the politics and the other. We've seen that in Brazil. We've seen that in
Divided
other parts
or
like Australia. So we
it's
not need to
created
care
by
about the
CBS,
divisions
NBC,
going on
and ABC.
in other parts of the world as well, because it seems like it's not just a divided America; it's a divided world. But
They
Shaquille, you
created.
really
Remember,
alluded
there
to
was
this
no
before.
red state,
But
blue
Mark,
state.
you want to
There
try and
was no
compare
red
yourself.
state and blue states.
You want to try and
CNN
compare
created.
yourself to
Doesn't
Peru?
exist.
You want to compare yourself to Peru? Seriously?
We're
You
not.
sit there in the United States,
Yeah.
right, with the enormous luxury that Western society provides, right? Same as people in Australia that whinge about Australia, right? You've got all this luxury, you've got all this stuff, and you've got to find things to complain about. Oh, look at that industry. That industry only employs 9% people of color when there's actually 13% that live in that area. Oh, we're going to have a protest. You guys find stuff to fight about. That's why no one takes you seriously. Because if the ideas that America has, or Australia, or the UK, or Canada, if the ideas for running our countries are so good, why aren't they foreign policy? Why don't we go to the poor nations of Africa? There's 54 countries there, 1.3 billion people that live there, and say, look, guys, you're doing things wrong. What you need to have is more bureaucracy. What you need to have is less healthcare. What you need to have is 75,000 pages of tax code so that nobody knows whether they're coming or going. Well, why is it the policies that we impose on our own citizens in our countries, that we accept from our governments, why isn't that foreign policy if it's such a good idea? The answer is it's not. And so anybody who wants to try and tell me that, well, our country's divided, but so is, Equatorial Guinea, who cares? Equatorial Guinea is going through something different. That's what we're going through here. You got places in Africa where different tribes are killing each other, right? You've got warlords and dictators all over the place, and you're trying to compare that to the United States because Donald Trump said, I don't think the election should be certified because I think it was fraudulent. Or people that, or conservatives that sit there and say, Biden can't string a sentence together, so therefore he should be removed. And this isn't division. This is just bullshit, is what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of stupidity, and I would not argue that. But Lee actually brought up a very good point.
Don't share the concerns that Americans have about
the
what's
red
happening in
and
America.
blue states.
Lee actually brought up a good
CNN
point.
in the media. It doesn't exist. There is no red and blue state. That's garbage. It was actually created by CNN and the media. The divisions in the United States are created by our media. They're the ones who want to divide it because then they get more people watching their stupid television shows.
Yeah,
okay.
You're right.
I'm a Democrat. What's his name? Dan's a Republican. There's a lot of stuff that we agree on. Probably more that we agree on.
But that's exactly the point that I was making to our guests last night.
The whole thing of divide is garbage.
But that's exactly the point that I was making to our guest last night, Medea, right? So I may not, like you, Dan, I may not think that she necessarily achieved a lot by doing things that she did, but she's obviously a very passionate person. Look, she's put herself in harm's way. She went to the Middle East and got herself arrested and all sorts of things, advocating for things she advocated for.
Yeah.
But she also heckled Donald Trump, but she also heckled Obama, right?
Yes.
So she's been pretty consistent with her views, what she advocates for.
Equal opportunity.
And if you look at a lot of the things, not everything, but if you look at a lot of things that she said,
divided.
one of the things that she complains about is sweatshops, right? Like I mentioned earlier in the show. That is a reasonable thing to want to be an advocate against. Absolutely reasonable for her to do that. Now, presumably, most people, and I think most of the panelists, thought that her and I weren't going to get along, and maybe she did or maybe she didn't like me. I don't know. But what I will say is that when I first started talking to her, I said to her all the points where I agreed with her. I actually agree with a lot of things that she said. I agree with a lot of the issues she brought up. I may not agree with her proposed solutions, but I agree with the issues that she's brought up. And that's the thing. We've allowed media, and more so we've allowed politicians to drive us apart on things that reasonable people can generally kind of agree on. I talk about the unions because I'm not a fan, for the most part. I don't advocate for a society that doesn't have unions, though. Right, I think unions have done some good work. Yeah. So nobody is sitting there saying, well, if you die on the job, that's just your bad luck. You should have insurance. Your employer should be able to put you in really dangerous and treacherous conditions. Nobody's advocating for that. No business owners are advocating for that. So this is the thing. Politicians act like, Democrats act like Republicans are just heartless, don't care at all, right? And Republicans act like Democrats would rather shut down businesses rather than see them flourish. It's just not true.
They do that.
Hold on a second.
Okay, I mean, as a member of the Democratic Party, I can tell you something that's really appalling. I get emails from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day. And you know what they do? It's all garbage. They try to incite, oh, look what the Republicans are doing. They're so bad. Send us money. Look what the Republicans
and you don't think the Republicans do the same thing, Nick?
Well,
you used to be a Republican.
Yeah, I ignore them.
Matter of fact, I know the Republicans do the same thing because as a good journalist, I get stuff from both of them.
That proves my point. The politicians' vested interests in the media are the ones that are driving this divide.
As a good journalist, I go for both, and I get letters from both. So I do know they both do it. But the question I had, that I was going to get to, and we're going to got a few more minutes to do it. I'm actually going to get to something involving Ukraine very shortly. But just really quickly, one thing I was going to get to in the politician side is that I don't like is when there is this double standard, and that's actually what DeSantis was being called on because he sent one group of immigrants to Massachusetts, and then he's going to say that the Cuban immigrants or the Mexican immigrants are a problem and they can get shipped away to another place, and then you're going to kind of coddle the Cubans because the Cubans is a major voting bloc. Let's be real as to why DeSantis is doing what he's doing in Cuba with the in Florida with the Cubans. That's a major voting bloc and everything. So is that not a problem?
Mark, if you're going to sit there and preface your comments with calling out double standards, call them out on your side as well. You don't think that the Democrats that are currently in control of government sat down there, did a calculation and worked out what immigrants they could allow across the southern border and how they were likely to vote? Come on now.
No, there's double standards across both sides. I definitely agree with double standards most sides. I also agree with something that Lee said, that there's a lot of, I told y'all before, and some people get mad when I bring it up because some people didn't like that thing when it was taking place, but I was a member of Occupy and was involved with that whole Occupy movement here in Durham, and that was a lot of the conversation around have and have nots, and that is a legitimate conversation.
Is it Occupy Wall Street? Because all the finance guys, all the big bad bankers are out there. Tell me, Mark, what exactly was it that was legitimate about that claim? Please, I want to hear it.
Occupy.
I really do. I want to hear it.
When I was doing the Occupy movement, we were actually looking at things like housing. We were looking at things like education. We were looking at a number of other issues. That's what we were doing here in Durham with our Occupy movement. You asked me specifically.
Mark, don't go half-cocked into some other subject.
Don't go half-cocked. You asked me what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about when I was one of the organizers.
No, don't talk about housing. Don't talk about all this other shit. Occupy Wall Street, right? The big bad bankers, the hedge fund managers, the finance traders. So people like myself. Absolutely. Come on. Tell me what it is that we are doing, which is so bad that's destroyed your community so much. Please, I want to hear it.
I'll help you.
I'm waiting. Don't worry about housing. Don't worry about state issues. Don't worry about how your government's let you down. Tell me how it is that people like me who buy and sell shares and derivatives and interest rate derivatives and that sort of stuff, please tell me how it is that I have hurt you. I really want to know this.
They suck money out of the economy into
Nick, don't help him. Don't help him. He's the one that was a member of it. Come on, Mark.
I can help you. I know what they do. I know,
like I said, I'm not going to this particular argument. We got like 7 minutes to go with everything.
I'll give you 3 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes. I won't say a word. I'll give you 3 minutes to explain to me how it is that people like myself,
like I said, I would like to see some
have hurt your community.
Well, I didn't say you specifically hurt me specifically. I never said you specifically hurt me. And the whole purpose of Occupy was to make some greater distribution of wealth and to get some greater things happening in certain economies. Now, some people might not like this and everything, but yes, believe it or not, the U.S. already has some socialistic kind of ideals and things of that nature. And I'm not going to dismiss some of those ideals.
Just stay on point. We're not talking about redistribution of wealth because it's not only the bankers and finance traders that are wealthy. So we're not talking about that. Let's just stay on point. What is it specifically? What is it specifically that finance traders,
we weren't just talking about the bankers, we weren't talking about just the hedge funds. We were talking about a lot of folks that had distribution across the board. They were in that wealthy thing. We were not targeting your group specifically and everything.
Occupy Wall Street wasn't targeting
Shaquille. Since you're talking about Occupy Wall Street, what's now happening is that there is an occupation of Ukraine. and Russians want to do something what they
Occupy
believe
Ukraine.
is
What can I
wrong.
say?
They believe they can do it right by occupying Ukraine. So, Mark, maybe you can rely on that whatever all these Wall Streets are doing wrong, and they're
Besides, it's
so you
mostly
have to occupy in order to do it right. But what exactly they're doing wrong, and what exactly you want to do it as right? Same to so therefore occupation would be justified, and you would explain properly. Okay, we decided to occupy Wall Street to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
Well, they were fireballing.
It was to make to bring attention to different issues and to have conversations around those issues. That's what the whole conversation was around and everything. And I have some of my friends on that were more involved than I was, and you can have a deeper conversation with them about things. The reason I got involved was because I wanted to deal with some issues that were going on in my community. And when I say my community, I don't mean just the African American community. I'm talking about the community of Durham and a number of other things, including around housing, including around education, including around a number of other things. That's why I got involved. That's why my dad got involved. That's why a number of us got involved in everything. So that's why I got involved. That's why I got involved.
That's fine.
Right?
Let me respond to you. Mark. That's absolutely fine. So you've got these issues: healthcare, education, housing, etc. You know, like the normal issues. But what you decided to do with the Occupy movement was to blame those issues on people that worked in finance and banking. So I'm not asking you to tell me what the issues are.
I did not say issues are. In the meetings that I was in, we did not blame the people in banking and financing. We looked at a lot of folks, including the government here in Durham, which is very left-leaning government.
What exactly is it that stockbrokers and futures traders and share traders and etc. and bankers, what is it exactly that we've done to contribute to this issue?
Shaquille, can I answer?
Have you ever heard of redlining? Have you ever heard of some of the issues
on your little winch fest, blame some other group for the problems
that we're in? There are definitely some things in the banking industry that were, whether it was redlining, whether it was unfair practices in banking, and I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about the small bankers, because there were some small bankers that were actually involved with the Occupy movement here in Durham that were seeing some of the same points that we brought up, and I was some of them on the show as well.
I would like to answer your question. Here it is. Do you remember the old story when the guy accused of robbing the bank? So the judge is asking him, "Why did you decide to rob the bank?" Because that's where the money is, Your Honor. The answer is okay. So Occupy Wall Street is very practical issue, because where the money is on Wall Street. So by occupying, attacking Wall Street, you are going right after the money. You don't distract yourself with racial issues or other issues. You're going exactly where the money is.
Are you kidding me? There's no money in Wall Street. Wall Street's basically empty office buildings right now. When I was in New York, you wouldn't believe it's like 40.
Nick, why would they occupying Washington then? Occupy the Capitol building.
Stupid idea. I mean, the thing is,
I think that's what the Proud Boys and others are trying to
would you
do.
rent an office building in Wall Street? The biggest investment banks in America aren't on Wall Street anymore. Would you want to work there? Of course not. It's dead at night. There's nothing there. But as I said, Mark, you know, all the things that you just listed were all the same things that the Sierra Club lists about why we need climate change stuff to happen. It's the same things that the left-wing and left-wing political parties roll out every single time they want to do something. You got a problem with racial inequality and wealth inequality? Let's increase taxes. Let's soak the rich. You got a problem with racism? Let's increase taxes and soak the rich. Is climate change a problem? Let's increase taxes and soak the rich. Is there a problem with housing?
That's not a fair statement at all. Like I said,
so what you've done is you have this Occupy
some of our past letters, and like I said, Occupy was like 6-7 years ago before the pandemic, and I'll bring some of the letters, and there was nothing in there about less necessarily social risk. I'll definitely bring Lamont on, who, like I said, I have a friend that ran in the Socialist Party and all in that space.
Mark, let me finish. What you've done. No, let me finish. Let me finish before you'll get the last say, because we're winding down. What you've done is you've gone after hardworking people who have studied finance, who have studied economics, that have studied how to manage money, who have studied how to manage risk. You've gone after them, and you've made them the scapegoat for the issues, just like you have to other people. Would you prefer that you don't have pension fund managers and hedge fund managers around in the world? Who do you think runs the pension funds that people rely on when they retire? Now, I'm not saying that the industry is always great. They're often not. But these are people
To kill, they're easy targets.
These industries.
First off, you're painting the picture totally wrong.
Why, Mark?
First off, you're painting the picture totally wrong, because I'm also a big supporter of Black Wall Street, and Black Wall Street was actually founded by people in the banking industry and the insurance industry. So I don't knock that at all. Go study the history of Black Wall Street, and you will see that North Carolina Mutual, which is a major part of that, was definitely part of the financial system and everything. So don't even go there with me and everything, when it's actually been part of our history, that it is very much important. Now, if there's problems in the industry, then yes, I'm going to go after them and everything. And that's what I was doing with Occupy. I can't speak for other people that were in there, but I know I was involved, and that was because there were things that were unfair in the industry, and that's what I was going after. But I also acknowledge the fact that banking is an important part of the Black Wall Street movement and everything, and
you've said that. Let me respond.
Part of the history, whether that was in Durham, whether that was in New York City, and I've said that live on air. I've said that at other places as well. I've said that in public spaces where I've spoken. So I've actually spoken in support of people in the banking industry, including damn you, Shaquille, and everything. So let's just go there and everything with me and everything. And you just got me to go off again, and I wasn't trying to do that today.
Okay, good. Now you said, let me respond before you end the show. Let me respond. So firstly, okay, now that you've turned it into a race issue.
I never turned it into a race issue.
Yes, you did. Let me just respond to you. The fact that you support Black Wall Street has nothing to do with the Occupy movement. What am I supposed to conclude from that? That let's occupy Wall Street except for the people that are black? That's ridiculous. Secondly, you don't need to stand up for me. I can stand up for myself. Anybody that wants to tell me that I somehow, because I've studied finance and have been able to build wealth for myself and my family by learning how the financial markets work, am somehow inflicting some grave wound on people in a country I don't live in, okay, are going to have a hard time. So I don't need you or anybody else to stand up for me. Thank you very much if you have done that, but I don't need it. Okay.
Well, that's your opinion. There are others that are glad that I'm standing up for them. There are others, including folks from other parts of the world. Why you got to finish when we wrap up the show and everything? Like I said, there are people that have been glad that have conversations as well from other parts of the world, and including other countries, including some of the African countries that y'all were talking about earlier as well. And one of the things I was going to get to, by the way, because I don't go to something else. I'm finished. No, you interrupted me. I said that there was one other thing I was going to get to.
Let me finish.
We also got to do a pre-recorded and all of that. So hold on one second. But I also said I was going to bring up Taylor Dudley, who was a U.S. Navy veteran that was released today, because that was actually today as well. So I was actually going to get to a Ukraine story.
Don't change the subject.
I'm not changing the subject. I'm just mentioning that I was going to get
to. You're going to attack my industry. I'm going to finish what I'm going to say. I've muted you because I want to finish what I want to say, okay? And at least let me do that before you go on to something else. The second thing is you made the comment that you somehow know what the problems are in the finance industry. With all due respect,
said that I know what the problems are in the financial industry. I said that there are issues in the financial industry that I have seen in the industry. I never said that I know all the problems. I'm not in the financial industry.
I didn't say all.
I said that I know, but I do. I mentioned redlining, which is a problem. I mentioned the unfair mortgages, which is a problem.
Obviously, you're afraid. You're obviously afraid I'm going to say something that's going to win the argument. That's why you keep.
No, it's not that at all. I don't care about it.
Be quiet. Let me finish my response to you. You said that one of the reasons that you joined the Occupy movement was because of the problems within the financial industry. With all due respect, Mark, you don't work in the finance industry.
You're not a stockbroker. You're a journalist.
You're a journalist.
The finance industry.
How would you know? How would you know what the problems are in the finance industry other than your preconceived ideas?
Lee and Sasha never heard me say anything about the financial industry or the banking industry.
I'll tell you what.
And I said that there were problems in there.
We'll replay the tape. As soon as we get off air, we'll replay the tape. You said that one of the reasons why you joined this was because of problems within the finance industry.
After you brought up
I'll ask you with all due respect,
and that's when I said
you are a journalist with preconceived ideas. You have never worked as a futures dealer. You have never worked as a stockbroker. You're not a banker. How would you know? How would you know so well that you're so passionate enough
and I have regular conversations with people in the banking industry
and destroy this industry that has done so much good for the world?
So don't make assumptions about what I know about banking or don't know about banking or about the stocks or anything else. You're making assumptions, and I'm not falling for the assumptions.
Well, I'm falling for the assumptions, Mark, because if you were such a great finance trader and you knew all the problems with finance, you'd go run a hedge fund and you wouldn't be a journalist. It's so
You don't know
interesting how
that. I wanted to be a
journalists and
journalist when I
politicians
was
know
a
so much
teenager
about
and
industries
everything.
like
I've
mine,
never said I
and you
wanted
want
to
to
run a
jump
hedge
on the
fund.
attack.
So if I
You
wanted to
want to
run a
jump
hedge
on the
fund, I
attack
probably
to
could
attack
run a hedge
me,
fund
but you don't
and
even know
all
what
that
you're
if I
talking
went
about.
and got the training in it. But that's not been one of my goals in life.
Fine. So if it's not one of your goals in life and you didn't want to do the training, then you're no expert. So why join a protest movement to point out all the calamitous flaws in the finance industry if you're not
It
in the
wasn't just
industry? You
the
don't know what
finance
you're talking
industry. I
about.
said Occupy Durham. I never said Occupy Wall Street. I
Oh.
wasn't at the Occupy Wall Street. I was at Occupy Durham. And I said
Right.
that we even have problems with some of the what you call woke agendas here on the left because there's a very left-leaning politics
the
system
Occupy
here in
movement is a
Durham.
movement to pick on the finance industry and the banking industry. That is what it's
That's
about.
not the way we
That's
did
exactly
it here.
what
Like I
it's
said, I
about.
can tell you how it was done here in Durham,
Yeah.
which is what I was part
Okay.
of. I was part of Occupy Durham.
Sure.
And it was
Mark,
done
most cities was
differently.
Occupy Wall Street. In fairness,
Say what?
most cities it was on Wall Street. They were
I'm sorry,
targeting Wall Street.
we've been
Most cities,
targeting
they
Wall
were
Street for
targeting
21
Wall
years.
Street.
I mean, Wall Street was part of the conversation, but a lot of the conversations that I was in,
It's
those
part of the
meetings,
conversation.
a lot
It's
of
part of the conversation. I'm an investment banker. I rock up, but there's no conversation, right? Because you're going to switch across to healthcare. You're going to switch across to redlining. You're going to switch across to housing. You want to have a conversation with me about the flaws of the finance system? Let's talk about them. But no,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. Why? Because you don't know. Because you're not in the industry. Because you just joined some movement because let's protest because that movement says, oh, we're all about some cause that you bleeding heart left-wing liberals think
you
is
don't
some
know what
great
I'm a
thing to
bleeding
be a
heart
part of
left-wing liberal
without
or
having
anything
any
of that nature. You
understanding
have
of
no
how the world
idea
actually
what my
works.
political ideals or ideologies are. You make assumptions of things of that nature. We actually
You've told
probably
me that
have a lot of
yourself.
things. I probably
You've
have a
said
lot of
this yourself on
libertarian
air.
leanings and a lot of leanings that might even be conservative and everything. So you're making a whole lot of assumptions.
Yeah. Barclay, the great conservative. All right.
I didn't say I was a great conservative either. I said that one of the things I love about my state, the state of North Carolina, is the fact that we gave you both Terry Sanford and Jesse Helms because we gave you things on both sides of the politics. And that's what I like to do is listen to both sides of the politics. That's actually what I do a lot on my shows as well. Is I like to hear
you do.
sides.
No, you do that. But let me tell you, you didn't give me those two people, right? I'm in Australia. I don't care what's going on.
I'm sorry, you said what?
You didn't give me. You said you gave me those two individuals. You didn't give them to me. I'm sitting here in Australia. What they're going to do in politics has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, you're in Australia. I definitely give you that and everything. And like I said, with the thing I brought up earlier was the have and the have-nots, which is a conversation that's been going on, and that was part of what Occupy was. The only reason I even brought up Occupy is because we brought up the have and have-nots conversation.
The poor have-nots. Those poor have-nots, my heart bleeds for them. It's so bad. You know what? Get a bloody job. Go study. Go to the library. Improve yourself. Stop whinging at me. Stop whinging at people like me because we happen to work in an industry that involves money. Okay?
I know
Get yourself out of it. You know.
I know some people that are very much suffering and very much in deep pain that went to college, went to everything else, and definitely are struggling right now and everything. And I'm not going to just
why
have
is that my problem, Mark?
a violent kind of sympathy that you love to give when they're going through problems.
Okay, well, you know some people that are struggling. Okay, it's not that I'm not sympathetic, but why is this my problem? Why is it that their struggle somehow means that because I'm a former stockbroker, somehow it's my fault? Somehow I have something to answer for. Okay?
Look, you don't have
I
to,
don't come from a family that comes from money.
You don't have to take,
from nothing, Mark. You guys do the bloody same and stop whinging at me.
Shakil, you don't need to take responsibilities for struggling people. There are a lot of struggling people all over the world and nothing can help them. What you should go, follow yesterday's ladies to love animals, love elephants, help the poor creatures. That's a win-win situation. Okay, those struggling people, they will take care of themselves one way or another, or they will die sooner or later anyway. So who cares if they will be living 25 years or 30 years or 50 years? They will die sooner or later. But animals, the elephants, we must go and help them. Okay, with that, Mark, please close the program because we have to do something about Ukraine.
Yes, get on to the Ukraine show.
Okay.
See you guys tomorrow.
See you.
Love the energy.
Yeah, the energy was fun. We're going to get on out of here. I've actually got to get ready to do Win Show as well, and also that pre-record that we were talking about earlier. But getting ready to get on out of here. So right now it's time for Win Charles show around the disability community and all in that space. So I'm sure she'll have some great thoughts, and we're going to start that right about now. So let's get ready to get on out of here.